I remember this happened in 2009. That was my first year moving back to Japan. I was at the time living with my Japanese maternal grandmother. I think it was autumn, late in the afternoon. I was in the living room and I was working on some kind of project involving a skateboard. Now, I used to skateboard in the 90s as a teenager, but after high school, it just became something that I did now and then, not so much every day anymore. But it was during probably the autumn holidays, which is a pretty short one. So I had a skateboard there, and I was trying to think of some way to make it easier for me to skateboard. So I think I came up with a way of maybe using those magnets, those bendable magnets that are sold in sheets, so I can cut them out and maybe super glue them onto my shoes or something. And it was just something that I did that at the time I thought was fun, really. I didn't have anybody to go out and skateboard with, but I mean, you know, everybody grows out of things, I guess. And after high school, all those friends that I went out to skateboard with every weekend, they moved on to do other things. But in a sense, that younger side of me remained in my heart. So anyway, I was working on this project, and I was coming up with ideas, and I was getting really excited about it, and something came over me. And although it only lasted half an hour, it was pure bliss. I would, looking back on it right now, I would label it as unconditional love. Now, this is something that I'd never felt before that day, that afternoon, and I haven't felt it since then. I was never able to replicate that feeling. Something came over me, and it only lasted half an hour. But I was radiating from within, from inside of me, this love. And why I call it unconditional love is because while I was feeling this way, when I was working on this skateboard this project, I guess I'll call it, I did not have a single thought of vengeance or pettiness. I'm going to be very brief about this, but my brother and I went through a lot of verbal abuse and a lot of daily physical abuse. Our dad was always working, so as soon as he left for work, she was free to do whatever she wanted with us. And so we had bruises on our backs, and for him it was on his face as well, because of the way that he was. And so him and I grew up in a very bad environment. And even when we left that environment, that anger, we held on to that anger. And him and I both had thoughts of justice, let's call it. of getting back at her. And those thoughts I used to entertain growing up, just to feel like I was empowering myself, because I felt so disempowered and weak and out of control of what was going on around us. So I would escape into these fantasies where I was taller and I was stronger, and I was able to protect myself from her, etc. And I went through some bullying in schools and stuff. So throughout my younger years, my childhood, my teenagehood, I felt very weak. And I was always petty. I held on to grudges. And in my weakest moments in my 20s and 30s, I, now and then, those thoughts of vengeance came to my mind and I entertained them. This is just how I grew up, escaping into fantasies of getting back at those who I believe wronged me. But again, in this half an hour, I felt absolutely no bad feelings about those people. About her, about those kids in the neighborhood, about those bullies at school. I didn't want to get back at them. I wanted them to feel how I was feeling at the time. And this is autumn, maybe around November, October, somewhere around there, of 2009. Living in Japan. That was my first year of teaching English in Japan. And the culture in Japan is very different to that of Australia, where I live right now. Their work culture, their work ethic, things are very different. And it took me a while to adapt, and I don't think I was ever able to completely adapt. And so along the way, I noticed that I just could not get along with certain teachers at certain schools. So I had negative feelings towards them. But again, during this half an hour of unconditional love, although their faces popped up in my mind, I wanted them to feel what I was feeling. This unconditional love was radiating from within me for some reason. All this jagged, sharp-edged, rigid structures that I placed around my consciousness washed away. It all just washed away, all the negative feelings that I could ever feel or remember feeling, all those bitter memories of my life up to that point. I was still able to remember them. I didn't forget any of them. I could remember them, but I just didn't have that bitter feeling towards any of them. And again, I didn't feel that vengeance. I didn't feel vengeful towards them. I didn't want to get back at them or get even with them. Even though most of them, or all of them, have totally forgotten all the things that they've said to me, or the things that they've done to me physically. I remembered all of it. But it didn't bother me. What I wanted, I think, in that moment was a clean slate I wanted them to feel how I was feeling, so that we could all rise up, all rise together. I think looking back on it now, it reminds me of that saying, I think by JFK. He said something about a rising tide lifts all boats. That, I think, somewhat summarizes the feeling that I was having at that time. If we can all rise together in this feeling of unconditional love, there would be no revenge, getting even with people, getting justice. No. We can all rise together and move forward. I didn't even have a trace of a negative feeling in my consciousness. And it's funny looking back on it now, because I wasn't trying to feel that way, because, I mean, how could I try if I never knew what unconditional love feels like? I just end up in that state of unconditional love. And all I had to do was act on my highest excitement at that time. And when that feeling started to taper off, started to dissipate, go away, it was very disappointing. I think that feeling started to go away when I was insisting on this project to work in a certain way. I was insisting on it a bit too much, and so I had expectations. And when my expectations were a little too clear, maybe a little too high in that sense, and I wasn't able to meet those expectations that I placed myself, that's when the disappointment came through. And that was what ultimately led to that feeling of unconditional love to disappear. Pettiness is weakness. Having a grudge, people who hold on to grudges, like I do, especially in my weaker moments, when I believe that things are not going as planned, I fall back on that habit of thinking of ways to get even with those people that I believe wronged me, even though those things happened decades ago. It's just a mess. This whole thing is a mess. I would like to be strong. To forgive is to be strong. I don't want to be petty. I don't want to hold on to grudges. I want to truly forgive. Not conditional forgiving, which is I don't believe is actual forgiving. Just like conditional love doesn't exist. Because I believe that love is by default unconditional. I would love to move into that direction of being in that state of being, in that mindset, in that energy, that frequency, that vibration. I would love to remain there, in that state of pure bliss and unconditional love. I remember it was, this is just a side note, but it was late in the afternoon and I was looking out the window and the sky was colored amber. Which, there's a recurring theme there. Something happens to me late in the afternoons when it's cool and it's dry and the sky is colored in amber. That warm color really heals me. And I'm not sure what I'm connecting to. Am I connecting to some kind of a past life? I'm not sure what it is. It just happens to me automatically. 30 minutes of unconditional love. I wonder what would life be like if that 30 minutes could be a few hours every day. If I could follow my highest excitement from moment to moment, with very little expectations on what the outcome ought to be. Just to stay in that moment for the sake of being in that moment of unconditional love. And if we could all feel that way, every single one of us, or most of us, or even just half of us, be in that state for as long as we can every day, I know that the world would be a better place. Passion, excitement, and unconditional love. Maybe there is a connection between those things. And I have to continue to change my life in that direction, because I've had it. I'm tired of running in the wrong direction. At least turn towards the right direction for me. At least take one step forward per day towards the right direction. And that would be enough. The 30 minutes of pure bliss and unconditional love that happened near the end of 2009 in Japan. And I still remember it vividly, clearly. I'll do what I can to continue to move in that direction, because it just feels right. With every fiber of my being, I was radiating. I was myself. Thank you for watching. More videos are in the works. Till next time.